Hello, welcome back. I've been out shopping, charging the camcorder. Just need to read a few minutes. Only need like one page, but the camcorder did run out of power. I need a minute. To get to my bed. I have pain in my back. So just need to record the last parts.
Historic charts showing the periods of time the world population has taken to double, from 1700 to 2000, starting at 500 million population, in billions. 0.512481 year 1500018041927197420022 n/a years elapsed 3041234748. Starting at 375 million population, in billions. 0.3050.751.53612 year 117115188119601999 c. 2100, 146 years elapsed 54416673939 c. 100 plus. Number of humans who have ever lived. The total number of humans who have ever lived is estimated to be approximately 100 billion. Such estimates can only be rough approximations. A7 modern population estimates are subject to uncertainty of around 3% to 5%. 15. Kapitsa, 1996. Cites estimates ranging between 80 and 150 billion. 147. The PRB puts the figure at 117 billion as of 2020, estimating that the current world population is 6.7% of all the humans who have ever lived. 148. Holb, 1995. Prepared another figure, updated in 2002 and 2011. The 2011 figure was approximately 107 billion. 149, 150, 151, Holb characterized this figure as an estimate that required selecting population sizes for different points from antiquity to the present and applying assumed birth rates to each period. 150. Robust population data only exist for the last 2 or 3 centuries. Until the late 18th century, few governments had ever performed an accurate census. In many early attempts, such as in ancient Egypt and the Persian Empire, the focus was on counting merely a subset of the population for purposes of taxation or military service. 152. Thus, there is a significant margin of error when estimating ancient global populations. Pre-modern infant mortality rates are another critical factor for such an estimate. These rates are very difficult to estimate for ancient times due to a lack of accurate records. Holb, 1995, estimates that around 40% of those who have ever lived did not survive beyond their first birthday. Holb also stated that life expectancy at birth probably averaged only about 10 years for most of human history. 150, which is not to be mistaken for the life expectancy after reaching adulthood. The latter equally depended on period, location and social standing. but calculations identify averages from roughly 30 years upward. Human population as a function of food availability. Individuals from a wide range of academic fields and political backgrounds have proposed that, like all other animal populations, any human population, and, by extension, the world population, predictably grows and shrinks according to available food supply, growing during an abundance of food and shrinking in times of scarcity. 153. This idea may run counter to the popular thinking that, as population grows, food supply must also be increased to support the growing population. Instead, the claim here is that growing population is the result of a growing food supply. Notable proponents of this notion include agronomist and insect ecologist David Pimentel, 154, behavioral scientist Russell Hopfenberg, the former to publishing a study on the topic in 2001, 155, anthropologist and activist Virginia Abernethy, 156, ecologist Garrett Hardin, 157, science writer and anthropologist Peter Fogg, journalist Richard Manning, 158, environmental biologist Alan D. Thornhill, 159, cultural critic and writer Daniel Quinn, 160, and anarcho-primitivist John Zerzan. 161. Scientists generally acknowledge that at least one significant factor contributing to population growth, or overpopulation, is that as agriculture advances in creating more food, the population consequently increases. The Neolithic Revolution and Green Revolution often specifically provided as examples of such agricultural breakthroughs. 162, 163, 164, 165, 166, 167. Furthermore, certain scientific studies do lend evidence to food availability in particular being the dominant factor within a more recent time frame. 168, 169, 154. Other studies take it as a basic model from which to make broad population conjectures. 162. The idea became taboo following the United Nations 1994 International Conference on Population and Development, where framing human population growth as negatively impacting the natural environment became regarded as anti-human. 170. Most human populations throughout history validate this theory, as does the overall current global population. Populations of hunter-gatherers fluctuate in accordance with the amount of available food. The world human population began consistently and sharply to rise, and continues to do so, after sedentary agricultural lifestyles became common due to the Neolithic Revolution and its increased food supply. 171, 164, 167. This was subsequent to the Green Revolution starting in the 1940s, followed by even more severely accelerated population growth. Often, wealthier countries sent their surplus food resources to the aid of starving communities. However, some proponents of this theory argue that this seemingly beneficial strategy only results in further harm to those communities in the long run. Anthropologist Peter Fogg, for example, has commented on the paradox that intensification of production to feed an increased population leads to a still greater increase in population. 172. Environmental writer Daniel Quinn has also focused on this phenomenon, which he calls the food race, coining a term he felt was comparable, in terms of both escalation and potential catastrophe, to the nuclear arms race. Criticism of this theory can come from multiple angles, for example by demonstrating that human population is not solely an effect of food availability, but that the situation is more complex. For instance, Other relevant factors that can increase or limit human population include freshwater availability, arable land availability, energy consumed per person, heat removal, forest products, and various non-renewable resources like fertilizers. 173. Another criticism is that, in the modern era, birth rates are lowest in the developed nations, which also have the highest access to food. In fact, some developed countries have both a diminishing population and an abundant food supply. The United Nations projects that the population of 51 countries or areas, including Germany, Italy, Japan, and most of the states of the former Soviet Union, is expected to be lower in 2050 than in 2005. 174. This shows that, limited to the scope of the population living within a single given political boundary, particular human populations do not always grow to match the available food supply. However, the global population as a whole still grows in accordance with their total food supply, and many of these wealthier countries are major exporters of food to poorer populations, so that, according to Hopfenberg and Pimentel's 2001 research, it is through exports from food-rich to food-poor areas that the population growth in these food-poor areas is further fueled. 154. Their study thus suggests that human population growth is an exacerbating feedback loop in which food availability creates a growing population, which then causes the misimpression that food production must be consequently expanded even further. 175. Regardless of criticisms against the theory that population is a function of food availability, the human population is, on the global scale, undeniably increasing. 176. As is the net quantity of human food produced, a pattern that has been true for roughly 10,000 years, since the human development of agriculture. The fact that some affluent countries demonstrate negative population growth fails to discredit the theory as a whole, since the world has become a globalized system with food moving across national borders from areas of abundance to areas of scarcity. Hopfenberg and Pimentel's 2001 findings support both this, 154, and Daniel Quinn's direct accusation, in the early 2010s, that first world farmers are fueling the third world population explosion. 177. See also World Portal Demographics of the World, Anthropocene, Birth Control, Coastal Population Growth, Demographic Transition, Population Decline, Doomsday Argument, Family Planning, Food Security, Human Overpopulation, Megacity, Natalism, One-Child Policy, Population Growth, Population Dynamics, Two-Child Policy, List of population concern organizations, List of countries and dependencies by population, List of sovereign states and dependencies by total fertility rate, List of countries by population growth rate, List of countries by past and projected future population, List of countries by population in 1900, List of countries and dependencies by population density, List of largest cities, List of religious populations, Lists of organisms by population for non-human global populations, Historical censuses, Historical demography, Explanatory notes,
Good. Let's stop.
World population.
And delete. So I'll read this next for the videos just to split. I had to stop the video.